Hi, here is an analysis of the IELTS Essay Writing Question of 22nd February 2025. So I know most of you are curious to find out what was the question type that appeared on 22nd February. As well, the students who attended the test would find this video helpful because I'm trying to do an analysis of the question and we will discuss the possibilities of answering it. So you can check how you had attempted the question as well. The last question paper which we discussed for the 8th of February was a different type of question. It was a two-part question. This time for 22nd of February in the IELTS essay writing, the most common question was asked. Any guesses what that type was? Well, no prizes for the guesses because I've already mentioned that it is one of the most common question types asked, and that was, to what extent do you agree or disagree? So let's have a look at the question. What you can see on screen was a question for 22nd of February 2025, IELTS academic writing. The question said, government funding should only be provided for the best students as scholarships. Continuing, it says, other funding of universities should come from student fees, 1, and private organizations, 2. And then the task, to what extent do you agree or disagree? Of course, the common instructions for all the essay questions remain, that is, spending 40 minutes on the task. Give reasons for your answer, include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience, and the instruction regarding the total number of words that you're expected to write, which is at least 250 words. So, as I always encourage students, I would recommend that you stick somewhere between 260 and 280 words. This is ideal, this is healthy than stopping right at 250 words. Now, do not write anything less than 250 as well. Alright, so let's analyze the question in detail. So, let's just zoom in to the question alone and leave the instructions away. So, we have the question on screen. So, every time you have the essay question, identify the two different aspects of the question. 1, what is the idea? What is the statement given to you? 2, what is the task? The task will tell you how you need to respond to the question. So here the first part, which is the idea that is being shared or the statement given, is basically given in 2 sentences. So the part from government funding all the way up to private organizations, this will give you the idea of the main theme of the question. So this is the theme of your essay as well. To what extent, how much do you agree or disagree is the task. Do you remember that one of the assessment factors in your IELTS writing, essay writing, is task response? And what does that mean? It means, have you responded to the task? So it is vital to identify the task. And here in this question, the task is, to what extent do you agree or disagree, which simply means how much do you agree or disagree with the idea given in the question. Now, by how much, you can write this answer in 3 different ways. This is what we normally discuss here with our students. Number 1, you can have a strong agreement to the question. That is, whatever idea is given to you, you fully agree with it. So you have a strong agreement. Number 2, you can have a strong disagreement, which means you do not agree with the idea given at all. And number 3, you can have a more balanced opinion, which means to some parts of the idea given you have an agreement with, but to the other parts given you disagree with. Okay? So you need to clearly identify which are the areas you agree and which are the areas you disagree with. Now, though there are 3 different ways to approach this question, I would say, depending on your skill in writing, depending on how fast you are at writing, either choose the first or the second method. That is easier than the third. But for strong candidates who are flexible with the language use, candidates who do not have a problem brainstorming at all, which means no matter what the question is, you always come up with brilliant ideas. If that is the case, you can even try the balanced opinion approach. So, in today's question, I'm going to discuss one of the first or second approaches of how you can structure your essay. If it's a strong agreement or a strong disagreement, you just have to stick on to one opinion, either agree or disagree, which also means that your entire essay can focus on that one particular aspect, which means if you say you agree with this idea, you're going to fully write down points as to why you agree. So your body paragraphs will completely deal with the agreement aspect. If you fully disagree with the idea, you're only going to say why you disagree, which again means that your body paragraphs will talk about all the disagreement points. Now let's understand how to structure it. We need to, of course, identify the topic here. What is the focus? Now there are a lot of things given here, but important to identify the main focus. Government funding should only be provided for the best students, which means if the government is funding universities, it should only go to the best students and as scholarships. So clearly it is an opinion given. Remember, every time you have this question, to what extent do you agree or disagree? It is an opinion, because you can only agree or disagree with an opinion and not with a fact. It goes on to say other funding of universities, which means if the university needs any other funding, it should come from the student fees, number 1. Number 2, or it should be contributed by private organizations. So here you are speaking about mainly focusing on the funding to universities. Now the idea given here is, if the government is funding, it should only be used as scholarships for the best students. But the government fund cannot be used for any other purposes. And if any other purposes, so you need to also understand what are the other purposes for a university. Of course, it will have a lot of needs in terms of maintaining its infrastructure or developing its infrastructural facilities. It will have to spend amount on research. It will have to spend an amount on teaching faculty, right? It will have to spend amount on adding more career-oriented or I would say updated courses for the students. So a lot of money and investment goes into all of these aspects. Now, if the government funding can only be channelized for scholarships, how will the university ensure that it lives up to or meets the standards that are required or keeps evolving as the needs change? And the opinion also says that for such funding, the university should be depending on student fees. So students who enroll in the university, whatever fee they pay, that should be used, plus private organizations. So here 2 things. One, identify areas of expense for university. That's important, because otherwise you will not understand why should you be agreeing or disagreeing. 2, you also have to think about what if it is based on fees and private organizations. How would that impact the university, its quality or the courses delivered? Either you can say yes, you fully agree, saying government should focus on promoting students who are good with their academics. Now when we talk about best students, we're talking about students with great academic qualifications, or I would say great academic fervor. Now what about the other students? Maybe the marginalized students from economically poor backgrounds, or students who do not have equal opportunities as those of the other students. Now, if the government focuses only on the academically strong students, wouldn't the other students suffer? So these are questions for you to ask yourself, to think of what opinion should I have as a student? Should I be fully agreeing with it or fully disagreeing with it? So let's pick one here. Let's disagree. Let's think of a strongly disagree essay. Because it's easier, because we have something very, a key term here, private organizations. And whenever we think of private organizations, what comes to our mind first? Profit, okay? Profit motive, or you can say profit oriented is what we talk about, I think, in terms of private organizations. So imagine if a university depends on private organizations for its funding, what do you think would happen? Now, it also would mean that the private organization would have a big say on how the university functions. The private organization, whichever organization is funding the university, can decide the courses, can decide the fee, can decide how the university runs itself. When all of this is given into the hands of the funding organization, quality could be compromised and a lot of other aspects could also be compromised. So thinking in these terms, let's understand. So if this is how we're going to write the essay, then of course we begin with, first we write the introduction. So we know that when it comes to the introduction, we're going to paraphrase the question. So you have to reword this, retaining the idea, the meaning and the tone. So if it is giving a particular opinion, the same opinion should be retained while paraphrasing. And in the introduction, you also mention your stand. Your stand or your opinion should be mentioned. So in this example of ours, we're thinking of a strongly disagree essay. So that is what I will include in the introduction. So this is my first paragraph. And because I fully disagree with the idea of using funds from private organizations to run universities, my first body paragraph will talk about why not, okay? Or how harmful, or what are the drawbacks. So I'm going to talk about the drawbacks when funded by private organizations. So I can mention one or two drawbacks here in body 1 with a detailed explanation of each point, and then I move on to my body 2, the second body paragraph, and I continue the drawback. So again I give one or two drawbacks here because mine is a strongly disagree essay. Okay, I mentioned one or two points here, and my fourth paragraph will be the conclusion. Now when I conclude the essay, I will also ensure to restate my opinion. Now why should I restate my opinion? Well, again, based on our assessment criteria, it clearly mentions that your opinion should be clear throughout the response. So in the introduction, start of the essay, I have already given my clear opinion. My body paragraphs are structured based on my opinion, and because here I disagree, I'm talking about the drawbacks in both the body paragraphs. And towards the end, in my conclusion as well, if I restate my opinion, then the entire essay reflects my opinion. This is something I have to be very, very careful about. Now, keeping these concepts in mind, let's look at a sample essay. Here on screen, we have a sample essay for this question. This is the introduction, and you can see that the first few sentences is basically a paraphrasing of the question that is given. Many argue that government funding for higher education should be exclusively channeled into scholarships for top performing students. Okay, talking about government funding, number 1, while other financial needs of the university are met through student fees and private organizations. Paraphrasing is complete. One more sentence. This viewpoint suggests that rewarding excellence encourages higher academic performance. However, I firmly disagree. You can clearly see my opinion here. However, I firmly disagree with this proposal for two main reasons. So my opinion is clear in the introduction. Now I go to the first body paragraph. So I mentioned that I'm going to have this disagreement because of two main reasons, which also implies that my first body paragraph will talk about the first reason and the second body paragraph will explain the second reason. Firstly, you can see how the paragraph begins. Firstly, which means I'm introducing my first reason for disagreement. Restricting public funds to only the best students deepens existing inequalities. Okay? By limiting support to a select few, the government risks creating a divide where only those with early advantages can succeed, marginalizing those who could excel if given proper financial backing. So here I am identifying the first point about the government funding and given only to academically sound students. Okay, academically sound students, how would that have a negative impact? Second body paragraph, I am giving my second reason, saying secondly, government funding plays a crucial role in maintaining quality and accessibility. Universities relying on public support, fostering research initiatives, developing diverse academic programs that benefit society at large, over-reliance on student fees and private funds might force institutions to prioritize profit-driven courses over essential, sometimes less lucrative areas of study. This shift could compromise academic freedom and limit the scope of innovation. So how did I answer that body paragraph? I've mentioned if the government supports funding, then universities can develop diverse academic programs and they can invest in research. But if I rely or if universities rely on private organizations, then what will be compromised here? That's clearly mentioned in the second body paragraph. And if you look at the last paragraph, in conclusion, very simple way of beginning a conclusion, in conclusion or to conclude, keep it simple. While rewarding high achievers through scholarships is commendable, it is short-sighted to base government funding solely on academic performance. A balanced funding approach is essential to ensure that higher education remains inclusive, equitable and capable of nurturing talent across the segments of society. So I have restated. It clearly states that I do not agree with government only focusing on the academically well-performing students. So I hope you've got an idea of the analysis of the question, how you should have approached the question, what are the three different ways of writing this response, and we've chosen one particular method which is a strong disagreement essay, and how you can structure your essay if you've chosen that path. So hope this video was helpful, and please use these methods. You can easily use or adapt or include these methods that we've just discussed in any of our essay questions. If you have any further questions to ask, you know what to do. Just post them as comments. Thank you.
Medcity International Academy. Trusted hands forever.